I've never been a fan of clowns. Even as a kid, I found them unsettling. It wasn't just the painted-on smiles or the exaggerated features. It was the feeling that something wasn't quite right, that a real person was hiding behind a grotesque mask, and you had no idea who they were or what they were thinking. It's a common fear, I know. Coulrophobia. But for me, it became something much, much more than a simple phobia. It became my reality. It all started in my senior year of high school. It was a Tuesday evening, late October. The air was getting that crisp, cold bite to it, and the sun was setting earlier each day, casting long, eerie shadows across the school parking lot. I had stayed late for play rehearsal. By the time I walked out to my car, the lot was almost empty. The streetlights flickered on one by one, their orange glow doing little to push back the encroaching darkness. That's when I saw him for the first time. He was standing at the far end of the lot, near the woods that bordered the school property. Just standing there, motionless. He was a clown. Not a cute, circus-type clown, but one that looked like it had crawled out of a nightmare. He wore a dirty, ruffled collar and a baggy, once white suit stained with something dark. His face was painted stark white, with a garish red smile stretched unnaturally wide and two black triangles painted over his eyes. He was holding a single black balloon that bobbed gently in the evening breeze. My heart hammered against my ribs. I fumbled for my keys, my fingers clumsy and cold. I told myself it was just a prank. Halloween was a week away. Some idiot was trying to scare people. But the way he stood there, so perfectly still, just watching, it felt wrong. I jumped into my car, locked the doors, and peeled out of that parking lot without looking back. I tried to laugh it off on the drive home, my shaky laughter echoing in the empty car. Just a stupid prank. That's all it was. A few nights later, I was in my living room, trying to finish some homework. My parents were out for the evening, and the house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. I got up to get a glass of water, and as I passed the front window, I glanced outside. My blood ran cold. He was there, standing across the street, under the flickering glow of a streetlight. The same clown, the same dirty suit, the same horrifying smile, the same single black balloon. He was just standing there, staring at my house, staring at my window. It was like he knew I was watching. My breath caught in my throat. I stumbled back from the window, my body trembling. I flicked off the lights and crawled on the floor to the phone, my hand shaking so badly I could barely dial 911. When the police arrived, he was gone. They swept the area with their flashlights, but there was no sign of him. No footprints, no balloon, nothing. They were polite but skeptical. They took my statement, told me to keep the doors locked, and left. They probably thought I was just a teenage girl with an overactive imagination. I knew what I saw. He wasn't just a prankster. He was watching me. The sightings stopped after that night, and, for a while, I almost convinced myself I had imagined it. Life went on. The play was a success. Halloween came and went, and the memory of the clown began to fade, like a bad dream you can't quite recall upon waking. But the fear never truly left. It lingered in the back of my mind, a cold knot of dread that would tighten whenever I was alone in the dark. The worst night came about a month later. I was asleep in my bed. I don't know what woke me up. Maybe it was a noise, or maybe it was just that primal sense of being watched. My room was dark, except for the faint moonlight filtering through my window. I lay there, my eyes slowly adjusting to the gloom, my heart thumping a slow, heavy rhythm. And then I saw it. A shape in the corner of my room, near the closet. A tall, slender silhouette, darker than the surrounding shadows. It was completely still. I held my breath, trying to convince myself it was just a pile of clothes on my chair, my mind playing tricks on me. But I knew it wasn't. The shape slowly began to move. It unfolded itself, rising to its full height. A sliver of moonlight caught a flash of white. A painted face. A wide, red smile. It was him. He was in my room. A scream was trapped in my throat, a silent, agonizing shriek. I was paralyzed, pinned to my bed by pure, unadulterated terror. How did he get in? The doors were locked, the windows were closed. He took a slow, deliberate step toward my bed. And another. He didn't make a sound. The only thing I could hear was the frantic, desperate pounding of my own heart. He reached the side of my bed and leaned over me. I could smell him then. A cloying, sweet smell of decay and old fabric. His face was inches from mine. The black paint around his eyes was cracked, and, in the faint light, I could see the real eyes beneath them dark, empty, and devoid of any human emotion. The red smile was smeared, as if he'd tried to wipe it off. He just stared at me, his head tilted slightly to one side. The silence stretched for an eternity. Then, he slowly raised a gloved hand and gently, almost tenderly, touched the single black balloon that was tied to my bedpost. I hadn't put it there. He had. He gave the string a little tug, making the balloon bob, and then he turned and walked silently out of my room. I heard my bedroom door click shut. I lay there, frozen, for what felt like hours, tears streaming down my face, too terrified to even breathe. When the sun finally came up, I screamed. I screamed until my throat was raw. My parents rushed in, and the police came again. They found my bedroom window unlocked, the screen slid open. But he was gone. We moved out a week later. I couldn't sleep in that room, in that house, ever again. I started seeing a therapist. I was diagnosed with PTSD. The nightmares were relentless. Years passed. I went to college in a different state, trying to put as much distance as I could between myself and that town, that house, that memory. I met my husband. We got married, and we built a life together. We had a son. For a long time, I felt safe. The clown became a ghost of my past, a terrifying story I tried to forget. I never told my husband the full details. How could I? It sounded insane. Then, last week, we were at a local park for my son's 6th birthday party. It was a beautiful, sunny day. Kids were laughing, running around, playing on the swings. There was a man there making balloon animals. All the kids were gathered around him, delighted. My son ran over to me, his face beaming, holding his prize. It was a single, black balloon. My smile froze. I felt the air leave my lungs. I looked over at the crowd of parents watching the balloon artist. And standing at the edge of the crowd, partially hidden behind a large oak tree, was a man. He wasn't in costume. He was just an ordinary-looking man middle-aged, with thinning hair and tired eyes. But he was staring right at me. And, as our eyes met, he slowly, deliberately, smiled. It was the same smile. That wide, unnatural, painted-on smile. It wasn't on his face, but it was in his eyes. He knew me. He gave me a small, almost imperceptible nod, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. He was never a clown. The clown was just a costume. The real monster was the man behind the makeup. And he found me. He knows where I live. He knows I have a son. And I know, with a certainty that chills me to my very soul, that this isn't over. The show is just beginning. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, or if it sent a chill down your spine, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what comes next. The street was dead silent, which was weird for a graduation party. But then I saw it, Jason's house, practically vibrating at the end of the cul-de-sac. Music was thumping so hard, you could feel it in your teeth from the curb. Inside, it was a sea of sweaty teenagers, all celebrating the end of high school, the start of our lives. The air was thick with cheap perfume and the smell of spilled drinks. I squeezed through the crowd, looking for my friends, when the front door creaked open again, and that's when he walked in. The music didn't stop, the dancing didn't falter, but a pocket of silence just formed around him. He was a clown, not one of those fun, colorful party clowns, but something out of a nightmare. His costume was faded and worn. The white face paint was cracked, and his smile was a grotesque, fixed red gash. He just stood there, by the door, unmoving, unblinking, a silent, terrifying statue in the middle of chaos. People started to notice, whispering, pointing. The party vibe was starting to curdle. Jason, being the host and the resident jock, finally pushed his way through. "Hey man, party's kind of invite only," he said, trying to sound tough, but his voice had a slight tremor. The clown didn't respond. He didn't even look at Jason. His gaze was fixed on something, or someone, deeper in the house. Jason got more frustrated. "Did you hear me? You gotta go." He reached out to grab the clown's shoulder, but the clown finally moved. He slowly lifted a dirty, white-gloved hand and pointed, not at anyone in the crowd, but down the hallway, toward the back of the house. The gesture was slow, deliberate, and incredibly unsettling. The clown started walking. He moved with a strange, gliding motion, parting the crowd like the Red Sea. No one dared to get in his way. A morbid curiosity took over, and a small group of us, including me and Jason, started to follow him. He went down the hall, pausing at each door, the bathroom, the guest room, the office. At each one, he'd just peer inside for a moment, then continue on, his big, floppy shoes making no sound at all on the hardwood floor. Our hearts were pounding in our chests. We had no idea what he was looking for, but we knew it wasn't good. He finally reached the last door at the end of the hall, the master bedroom, Jason's parents' room. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. We waited, holding our breath, expecting a scream or a crash, but there was nothing, just silence. After what felt like an eternity, Jason cautiously pushed the door open wider, and we peered in. The room was empty. The window was locked. The closet was closed. The clown was just gone. It was impossible. There was nowhere he could have gone. We were all staring, completely baffled, when my friend Sarah gasped and pointed at the large vanity mirror on the wall, scrawled across the glass in what looked like thick, red marker, were 5 words that made my blood run cold. "You weren't home last time." We all stared at it, the message glowing faintly in the dim light from the hallway. Then Jason started shaking. He stumbled back, his face as white as a sheet. "No," he whispered, his voice cracking. "It can't be." He looked at us, his eyes wide with pure terror. "My house was broken into a few months ago. Nothing was stolen, but the police found a message, written on this exact mirror." He took a shaky breath. It said the exact same thing. The realization hit us all at once. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't some random party crasher. The person who broke into his house had just come back, and this time, we were home. I used to work part-time at a small grocery store during my last year of high school. It was the kind of place that stayed open late but never got too busy after dark. Most nights were quiet, especially during weekday closing shifts when only a few customers came in before we shut the doors at 11 p.m. There were usually 3 of us working the late shift, 1 cashier, 1 stocker, and the shift supervisor. Nothing ever really happened there. It was predictable and boring, which is why what happened that October night felt so out of place. It started with a single customer. He walked in around 10:20 p.m. About 40 minutes before closing. I remember checking the time because we'd just finished cleaning the aisles and were counting down until we could leave. When the automatic doors slid open, I looked up from the register expecting a normal late-night shopper. Instead, a clown walked in. At first, I thought it was someone wearing a Halloween costume early. It was mid-October, so that wouldn't have been unusual. But the costume looked old. Not like something from a store. The colors were faded and dirty, and the face paint was smudged unevenly across his face. The red mouth curved too wide, stretching almost to his ears. He didn't grab a cart. He didn't head toward any aisle. He just walked slowly through the entrance and stopped near the front windows, staring at the store. I glanced toward my coworker Mia at the next register. She looked just as confused as I felt. "Evening," I said politely, trying to act normal. "Let me know if you need help finding anything." The clown didn't respond. He just stood there for several seconds, then turned his head slowly toward me. His eyes looked darker than they should have under the bright fluorescent lights. Not shadowed, just wrong somehow, like he hadn't blinked in a long time. Then he started walking, not toward the shelves, toward the back of the store. His shoes made almost no sound on the tile floor. He moved slowly, passing each aisle without stopping. I watched him in the convex mirror mounted on the ceiling as he reached the far end near the storage hallway. "Do you know him?" Mia whispered. I shook my head. Probably just messing around for Halloween, but something about the way he moved made me uneasy. He wasn't browsing, wasn't shopping, just walking, like he already knew where he was going. He disappeared into the back hallway leading to the employee-only storage area. "Hey, sir," I called out. "You can't go back there." No response. I looked toward the supervisor's office, but the door was closed. Our shift supervisor, Tom, was usually in there doing paperwork around that time. I assumed he'd handle it. So I stayed at the register A minute passed. Then two. The clown didn't come back out. Mia looked toward me nervously. Should we check? Before I could answer, the lights flickered once, just for a second. Then they stabilized. I stepped out from behind the register and walked toward the back hallway. The store felt strangely quiet. Even the usual humming from the refrigerators seemed softer. "Hello," I called. No answer. I reached the hallway and turned the corner slowly. The storage area lights were on, illuminating stacks of boxes and metal shelves. The hallway itself was empty. No clown. I checked. The employee restroom, empty. Storage room, empty. Emergency exit door still locked from the inside. There was nowhere he could have gone. I went back to the front, feeling a little unsettled. "He's not back there," I told Mia quietly. "What?" she asked. "Where'd he go then?" Before I could respond, the store's intercom clicked on. A soft crackle of static filled the air. Then a voice spoke. "Store will be closing soon." It sounded like Tom's voice, but slightly distorted, like it was coming from a weak recording rather than live speech. Mia frowned. "He doesn't usually use the intercom." The announcement repeated. "Store will be closing soon." But we still had 30 minutes before closing time. I walked quickly toward the supervisor's office and knocked on the door. No response. I tried the handle. Locked. "Tom," I called. "You in?" There, silence. Then the intercom clicked on again. "Check the aisles." The voice sounded closer this time. Clearer. Definitely Tom's voice, except it wasn't coming from the office. It was coming from the speakers above us. Mia stepped closer to me. "Okay. This isn't funny." We both started checking the aisles together. Each one empty. Shelves fully stocked. No customers anywhere in the store. The place felt abandoned. Then we reached the frozen food aisle. At the far end, near the freezer doors, stood the clown. He was facing the glass freezer, completely still. His reflection stared back at him from the glass. For a moment, I thought he hadn't noticed us. Then his reflection moved. Not his actual body. Just the reflection. It slowly turned its head toward us in the glass, while the real clown remained facing forward. My chest tightened. "Did you see that?" Mia whispered. The clown's reflection smiled wider. Then, slowly, the real clown turned around. He began walking toward us. Slow, steady steps, not rushing, not threatening, just approaching. We backed away instinctively. The intercom clicked again. "Leave," Tom's voice said quietly. Now, we didn't argue. We ran to the front of the store and pushed through the exit doors without looking back. Once outside, we stopped near the parking lot, breathing hard. That's when we saw Tom, standing beside his car, looking confused. "Why are you guys outside?" he asked. "We thought you were inside," I said, trying to catch my breath. "I left 10 minutes ago," he replied. "Clocked out early." A cold wave moved through me. We called the police. They searched the store thoroughly. No sign of anyone inside. No unlocked doors. No security footage showing a clown entering or leaving. But when we checked the camera footage from inside the store later, one detail stood out. Every camera showed empty aisles the entire time. Except for one frame. In the reflection of the freezer glass, barely visible, stood a tall clown figure directly behind where we had been standing, watching us, even though it never appeared on any other camera. My high school had a janitor everyone knew, but nobody really talked to. His name was Mr. Keller. He worked the evening shift, which meant most students only saw him if they stayed late for sports or detention. He was tall, thin, always wearing the same gray uniform and pushing a cart that rattled slightly when it moved. He never said much. If you greeted him, he'd nod politely, but rarely spoke. Most people described him as quiet, but harmless. That changed during my senior year. I was on the basketball team, and during the winter season, we practiced late. By the time practice ended and I showered, the school was usually almost empty. Only a handful of students remained in the building, mostly from other sports or clubs finishing up. One night after practice, I realized I'd left my phone in my locker. I went back into the locker room alone while the rest of my teammates headed outside. The hallway lights were already dimmed for the night, casting long shadows across the floor. As I walked toward the locker room, I saw Mr. Keller at the far end of the hallway. He was pushing his cart slowly, stopping every few steps to mop the floor. Nothing unusual. I grabbed my phone and came back out a minute later. The hallway was empty. I assumed he'd moved into one of the nearby classrooms. But as I walked toward the exit, I heard something behind me. The faint squeak of wheels rolling slowly across tile. I turned around. Mr. Keller's cart was at the far end of the hallway again, but he wasn't pushing it. It was just sitting there. I stared at it for a few seconds, waiting for him to step out from a classroom or supply closet. He didn't. The hallway stayed completely silent. The cart didn't move. I shook it off and kept walking toward the exit. Halfway down the hallway, I heard the squeaking again, closer this time. I turned around. The cart was now about 10 feet behind me. Still no sign of Mr. Keller. A cold feeling spread through my chest. I stepped backward slowly, eyes fixed on the cart. It remained perfectly still. Then one of the cleaning tools hanging from its side swung slightly, like it had just been set down. I didn't wait any longer. I turned and walked quickly toward the main entrance. My footsteps echoed loudly in the empty hallway. As I reached the corner leading to the front doors, I glanced back one more time. The cart was gone. Completely gone. I stopped walking. The hallway behind me stretched empty and quiet. No cart. No janitor. Nothing. I told myself I was just tired from practice. My mind was playing tricks. That explanation held up until the next night. Practice ran late again. This time, 3 of us left the gym together. We joked around as we headed toward the exit, our voices echoing through the empty building. As we turned into the main hallway, one of my teammates stopped walking. "Isn't that the janitor?" he asked quietly. At the far end of the hallway stood Mr. Keller. He wasn't pushing his cart. He wasn't holding any cleaning supplies. He was just standing there, facing the wall, completely still. We slowed down as we approached. "Hey," my friend called out casually. "We're heading out." Mr. Keller didn't respond. We got closer. Close enough to see his reflection faintly in the glass trophy case along the wall. His posture looked wrong. Too stiff. His head tilted slightly downward, like he was staring at something on the wall. "What's he doing?" my other teammate whispered. Then Mr. Keller spoke. But his mouth didn't move. The voice came from somewhere else in the hallway. Same tone. Same voice. Just not from him. "Stay after hours. The voice said softly. We see more then. All three of us froze. Murdoch Keller remained perfectly still, facing the wall. The voice came again, echoing slightly. Stay. Then he moved. Not turning normally. His body twisted slowly, shoulders first, then his head, until he was facing us. The motion was unnatural, like his joints didn't bend the way they should. He smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. We backed away immediately. None of us said anything. We just turned and walked quickly toward the exit without taking our eyes off him. He didn't follow. He just stood there watching as we left the building. The next day at school, we asked a teacher about Murdoch Keller. She looked confused. There's no one here by that name, she said. We described him. Tall, thin. Gray uniform. Evening janitor. She shook her head. The night janitor retired last year, she explained. We haven't hired a replacement yet. Cleaning crew comes in early mornings now. A strange silence settled between the three of us. That afternoon, after classes ended, I walked past the trophy case near the main hallway. On the inside of the glass, near the bottom corner, someone had written something in what looked like a finger dragged through dust. 3 words. Stay after hours. I never stayed late at school again after that. None of us did. Because sometimes the people you see walking empty hallways at night don't actually work there at all.